All right, hey everyone, and welcome back. Back for another deep dive.
Yeah, good to be back.
We're diving into something super relevant for the UPSC, especially the mains exam.
Definitely. And hey, even prelims, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It could pop up anywhere.
You never know.
Today we're looking at India
Uh-huh.
and how India is trying to, I guess you could say, climb the ladder and become a global investment powerhouse.
That's the goal.
Big goal.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious. And to get there, well, we've been reading up on it.
Yeah, doing our homework.
The Indian Express,
Oh, yeah?
CNBC TV 18.
Always a good source.
So we've got some great insights to share.
Should be a good discussion.
I think so. But the big question is, can India actually pull this off?
Yeah.
Can they really become this, major investment hub? I mean, the world's changing so fast.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like this constantly shifting landscape.
Exactly. So let's start with the elephant in the room,
What's that?
the U.S.-China trade war. How does this, global showdown actually create opportunities for a country like India?
Well, I think the easiest way to think about it is, when these two giants clash,
Yeah.
it sends ripples, throughout the whole pond.
Right.
Supply chains, global supply chains are getting completely reshuffled. Companies are having to think differently about where they manufacture, where they invest.
And they're looking beyond China.
They have to.
So this is where India sees an opening.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, hey, come to us.
Right.
We're open for business.
So it's almost like India is not just trying to get a slice of the pie, they're maybe going for a bigger piece.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, we've seen this before, right? Remember the last U.S.-China trade war?
Yeah.
India saw this huge surge in their exports.
Wow.
So the question is, can they replicate that? Can they even do better this time?
That's the big question. But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just welcoming everyone with open arms.
No, definitely not. It's
Wow.
not that simple.
There's got to be more to it.
There is, and that's where these things called bilateral investment treaties, or BITs, come into play.
Okay, BITs. I feel like these can be kind of confusing, so let's break it down for our listeners. What is a BIT? Why does it even matter?
Sure. In simple terms, it's like a contract, between two countries.
Okay.
And this contract lays out the rules for foreign investment. Things like, how are we going to protect investors? How do we handle disputes?
Right.
It's like a legal framework for how businesses operate across borders.
So it's almost like a safety net for investors.
Yeah, kind of.
They know if something goes wrong, there's a process in place.
Right, exactly. And India, they've been really busy revising their BIT model to find that, that sweet spot.
Okay, there's that balancing act again.
Always a balancing act.
What are the key features of this revised model? How is it different from, the old way of doing things?
So the 2016 model BIT was like a big shift. It emphasizes the rights of the state, and it really focuses on the responsibilities of investors.
Interesting.
One thing that everyone talks about is this exhaustion of local remedies clause.
Exhaustion of local remedies.
Sounds intense, right?
Yeah.
So basically it means foreign investors, they have to try everything they can within India's own court system before they can even think about going to international arbitration.
So, go through all the legal channels within India first.
Yeah, exactly. It's like saying, look, you got to give our system a fair shot before you go running off to some international court.
So they're basically saying we're open to foreign investment, but we're not messing around with our judicial sovereignty.
Exactly. Control over their own legal system. That's key for them.
I can see how that would be appealing to a lot of people, especially those who prioritize, national interests.
For sure.
But on the flip side, does it scare some investors away? Like if they see this clause and think, oh, this is going to be a headache, it's too unpredictable.
That's the debate, right? Some Western nations, they've raised concerns. They see it as a red flag.
I see, yeah.
Like who wants to invest in a place where they might not have a clear path to resolving disputes?
Right, right. And speaking of red flags, there's the recent Nestle case. Can you give us the rundown on that?
Oh, yeah.
How does it relate to all this?
So the Nestle case, it's a real-life example of how tricky these international investment disputes can get. Basically, Switzerland, they suspended their double taxation avoidance agreement with India, their DTAA.
Wait, hold on. Let's back up a bit. What's a DTAA? Why is suspending it such a big deal?
Okay, so imagine you're a company and you're earning money in two different countries.
Okay.
You don't want to get taxed twice on the same income, right?
Makes sense.
That's where the DTAA comes in. It's a treaty that says, hey, we're going to avoid this double taxation.
Ah, so it's like a safety net for companies operating across borders.
Yeah, you could say that. So in this case, Swiss companies like Nestlé, they were getting dividends from India, but they weren't getting taxed twice on that income because of the DTAA.
Makes sense. So what happened? Why did they suspend it?
The Indian Supreme Court ruled that the DTAA couldn't actually be enforced unless it was specifically notified, under the Income Tax Act.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly, Swiss companies were facing much higher taxes on their dividends from India.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it was a big financial hit, and Switzerland wasn't happy about it. They saw it as a violation of the DTAA, and boom, they suspended it.
Wow. That sends a pretty strong message.
Definitely. And it makes other investors nervous.
Yeah, you can't blame them.
It kind of shows the risk, the uncertainty that comes with investing in India.
Right, it raises questions.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about PPITs, we've talked about the Nestle case, and it's clear that finding that balance, it's tough.
Really tough.
But is India trying anything else? Are there other approaches to attract investors while, protecting their own interests?
Well, they are experimenting. One interesting model is the one they have with the UAE.
Okay, tell me more about this UAE model. What makes it stand out?
Well, the India-UAE BIT is considered much more, I guess you could say, investor-friendly
Okay.
than the 2016 model. For example, it cuts down the waiting time for international arbitration.
So investors don't have to wait as long if they want to go that route.
Exactly. It goes from 5 years down to 3.
So it's like a compromise.
Yeah, you could see it that way.
Yeah.
But some Western nations, especially the EU and the UK, they're still pushing for more. They're not totally on board with even a 3-year wait.
So the negotiations continue.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
But what if those negotiations hit a wall?
Mm.
Is there a plan B?
Actually, there is. Some experts have suggested getting rid of the mandatory waiting period altogether.
Completely.
Yeah, and instead going with what they call a fork in the road clause.
A fork in the road.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. How does that work?
So with the fork in the road, it basically gives the investor a choice
Okay,
right from the start.
right.
They can choose to settle their disputes through the courts in India
Okay.
or go for international arbitration.
So
Yeah.
they get to pick their path.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
But the key here is they can't, change their mind later on.
Oh, so they have to commit to one route.
Yeah, it's like you choose your path, you stick with it.
I see. So it encourages them to really think it through, weigh the options.
Yeah, exactly.
But doesn't that kind of, I don't know, undermine the India legal system? Like if investors can just bypass the domestic courts entirely.
That's a good point. It's a concern people have. Some argue that it actually makes India more attractive to investors.
How so?
Well, it gives them more flexibility, more options.
Right.
Shows India's committed to fairness,
Okay, I see that side of it.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, there's always a risk involved.
Okay. Now, bringing it back to the U.S.-China situation, we talked about how India could benefit.
Right.
But are we actually seeing this play out? What are the signs?
Well, there are definitely some positive signals.
Okay.
For example, Indian exporters are seeing more orders, especially from the U.S.
Really?
Things like textiles, pharmaceuticals, even electronics.
So it's not just talk. There's real action happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's translating into real business. And there's another thing to keep in mind. The U.S. is keeping a close eye on China and those tariffs, and they're not afraid to retaliate. So if they impose countermeasures, it could really boost demand for Indian products.
So it's like this domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One thing leads to another. And India's been in this position before. Remember, they were one of the biggest winners in the last trade war.
Right, right. So there's precedent.
Exactly.
But, we can't be too optimistic.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's not certain how much India will actually benefit this time.
Right.
What could hold them back?
Well, even though things look good from the outside, there are internal challenges.
Like what?
For instance, their manufacturing sector needs to be strong.
Right.
Competitive. They need to be able to meet the demand.
Yeah, if they can't produce efficiently and at a good price, then what's the point?
Exactly. It's not enough to just be there. They need to be ready.
So it's about being prepared, having all their ducks in a row.
Absolutely. Preparedness is key. And also, the world's constantly changing. There are other countries who are also trying to attract investments.
Oh, of course.
Places like Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia, they're all stepping up their game.
So it's a competitive market out there.
Very competitive.
India has to really fight for its place.
They do. They really do.
Okay, well, let's shift gears for a minute.
Okay.
And bring this back to our listeners, those ambitious UPSC aspirants out there.
Right.
How does all of this connect to their exam prep?
Oh, this is all gold for their preparation.
Yeah, because this isn't just some geopolitical drama happening far away.
No, this is real-world stuff.
It's relevant.
Very relevant. I mean, BITs, investor protection, trade wars, these are all prime essay topics.
Right, and they could easily pop up in the interview, too.
Absolutely. They'll want to know if you understand these issues.
So it's not enough to just memorize facts and figures.
No.
You have to understand the nuances, the trends, be able to form your own opinion.
Exactly. They want to see that you're thinking critically, that you can connect the dots.
Okay, so before we wrap up this awesome discussion, let's recap the key takeaways. The stuff that's really going to help our listeners with their UPSC prep.
Sure.
What are the main points they should remember?
All right. First off, attracting foreign investment. It's a balancing act.
Right, that's the theme.
India wants to welcome investors but protect its own interests.
That's sweet spot.
Exactly. And that's reflected in how they design their BITs.
Right.
Especially when it comes to things like disputes and protecting investors.
And the Nestle case is a good reminder of how complicated this can get.
Yeah, a real-life example of the risks involved.
Right.
And that's why India's trying different things, like the UAE model, to find a better balance.
Okay.
But even that model is not perfect.
Right.
Lesser nations want more, so there's still tension there.
Right.
And then there's this idea of a fork-in-the-road clause, which is a fascinating alternative.
Yeah,
But again, not without its critics. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
definitely. Now, zooming out again to the global picture, the U.S.-China trade war, it's a real opportunity for India.
Yeah,
It could really boost their exports, attract those investments looking for a new home.
Right. And we're already seeing some signs of this happening.
Yeah, the increased orders from the U.S.
Yeah, that's promising. But India has to make sure their manufacturing sector is up to the task.
They have to be ready,
Exactly.
and they can't forget about the competition.
Oh, yeah, competition is fierce.
Other countries are in the game, too.
Absolutely.
So it's a pivotal moment for India.
It is.
They could become a global hub, but it's going to be a challenge.
Definitely a challenge.
And for our UPSC aspirants, this is vital knowledge.
Absolutely.
So keep digging into these issues, analyze, form your own opinions,
That's right.
because this is the kind of stuff that UPSC examiners love to test you on.
They want to see those critical thinking skills in action.
Okay, so before we go, I love ending with a thought-provoking question,
Oh, yeah, always good.
something to ponder.
Okay, so here it is in this, ever-changing world.
Yeah.
What can India do to become more attractive to foreign investors, but at the same time, protect its own economic sovereignty?
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. There's no easy answer.
It's that complexity that the UPSC loves.
Right. They want you to really think about it.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, don't just take in what we're saying.
Right.
Go deeper.
Yeah, do your own research.
Connect the dots. What's happening in the world? How does it all fit together?
It's all connected.
It is. And then, most importantly, what do you think? Yeah, form your own opinions.
Because there's not always a right answer.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding all those different sides.
The pros and cons.
Yeah, and being able to explain your viewpoint,
Articulate it clearly.
That's what makes it so interesting.
It does.
Room for debate,
Definitely.
different perspectives. That's what we want here on the Deep Dive.
Yeah, we want to hear what you think.
So if you have any questions, any thoughts on this, jump into the comments below.
Yeah, let's get a discussion going.
We love hearing from you guys.
We do.
Because that's how we all learn, right?
Absolutely.
And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives.
Yeah, we'll keep bringing you the good stuff.
The stuff that matters for your UPSC journey.
Exactly.
Big thanks to the Indian Express and CNBC TV 18 for their articles.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
Really insightful stuff. So, yeah, check those out.
Definitely worth a read.
Okay, well, until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
Happy studying, everyone. We'll see you on our next deep dive.